below the soul. I'm my own biggest enemy, wrestling old shadows, heart grown cold. All my empathy's unraveling me.
Welcome back. This is Lisa Marie, not Presley, and we're going to decode Fremantle's history, a part of WA, Western Australia, and we're going to look at the limestone and Fremantle, the old jail, and the old world, the stability grid that hums beneath the feet of everyone in Western Australia, especially Fremantle. Now, the history, as we know, we've been taught, is not true. They called it a rough penal colony by convicts that built them with hand picks, but we know that all the foundations they show us a different story. We're looking at the reset architecture and the buried windows at WA Museum, finished windowsills, looks like they're sitting deep underground, and that's not a design choice, that's the evidence of the mud flood. And then the roundhouse, it's not just a jail. They called it just a jail, but it's not just a jail. The geometry, it's 12 sides, and in the physics of the old world, a 12-sided structure isn't for holding prisoners. It is a frequency focusing lens. It was designed to focus atmospheric resonance into the headland to stabilize the coastal anchor. The Whalers Tunnel. The narrative says that this was carved in 5 months in 1837 with hand tools. 5 months, right, yeah. Solid limestone. Physics says no, the settlers didn't build it. They were simply clearing out pre-existing corridor in the subterranean grid. Now, moving north to Buckland Hill and Leighton Battery. Why are these batteries always on the highest coastal point? Because these are elevated pillars. The limestone there is called Aeolosian calcinite, acts as a natural capacitator. It holds the energetic charge. So beneath the modern military paint of the Leighton Battery, there are 300 metres of vaulted tunnels that defy colonial logic. There's no way they built them. These aren't just for ammo storage. They're resonators built to interface between the Earth's crust and the firmament. And then we're going to look at Rottnest. That Rottnest Island is a sentinel. The military put passive 9.2-inch guns at Oliver Hill in the 30s. But why there? Because the military infrastructure also sits on top of the old world power. They're using the same strategic components that the kingdom used to stabilise the edges of the unified landmass. The tunnels under Rottnest reach into the island's core, linking back to the mainland through the subterranean network. Now, I believe from my research that everything was connected anyway. Like the Earth was just one flat connection. And every single country, every single continent, every single island, it was all connected. And then once the abyss opened up, that's when all the land broke off. So we'll go back to this. The footprint, it's 12-sided. Think resonance, not rooms. Look down, see a window looking into the dirt. You found a mud flood reset point. Follow the stone. Is it dressed? Fremantle limestone in the middle of the city. That's an energetic link. Stop reading the plaques. Start reading the stone. This stability grid is operational. And you have to know how to see it. The Fremantle Gateway, Arthur Head and the Roundhouse. The limestone headland of Arthur Head is more than a scenic vista. It's a primary anchor node. Its density serves to ground the grid's operational frequency at a vital fluid dynamic junction. The mouth of the Swan River. In the grid's geometry, this is a point of immense importance where the saltwater frequency of the sea meets the freshwater frequency of the river. This anchor stabilizes this transition, preventing energetic turbulence. The subterranean arterial system. Evidence of pre-existing network is more visible in the Whalers Tunnel and Fort Arthur layer. The colonial record claims the tunnel was cut through solid limestone in a mere 5 months using 19th century hand tools. For the architectural researcher, this is a physical impossibility. This construction in reality was excavation of a pre-existing arterial void. Part of the vast limestone network that predates the colonial arrival. This coastal anchor serves as a low-ground grounding point linked to via subterranean limestone arteries to the high ground with resonators of the interior. Leighton Battery at Buckland Hill. As we move inland to the Buckland Hill, we encounter the Leighton Battery, a site that perfectly illustrates the Z-axis of stability grid, where the surface represents the current reset level, the 300 metres of limestone tunnels and chambers below represent the grid's true depth. The high coastal resonator. In geometry of the old world, elevation is a functional requirement. Buckland Hill, as one of the highest coastal points, served as a resonator, while the subterranean tunnels provide the earth grounding. The elevation provided the firmament connection, creating a vertical pillar of stability. The Leighton Battery survived the mudflood event due to three specific architectural factors. The massive limestone composition allowed the structure to vibrate in sympathy with the Earth's natural pulse, preventing structural collapse during the seismic shifts. The subterranean depth served as a protective buffer, insulating the grid's core components. The Z-axis is a position on the high ground, kept the upper resonator fully functional, even as the lower basement levels of the surrounding plains were. Doesn't just end at the shoreline. To ensure the total stability of the kingdom established in the outer defence ring of the horizon, the island sentinels, Oliver Hill, Rottnest Island, functions as the outer ring of the unified landmass. The Oliver Hill Battery is the sentinel of its perimeter, representing a deep core grounding node. The installation of 9.2-inch guns in the 1930s was not a matter of random military strategy. Modern builders simply occupied the pre-existing old world nodes that already possessed the necessary strategic resonance and structural foundations. The tunnel complex at Oliver Hill reaches deep into the island's core. In the stability grid, this depth is essential for the outer ring to maintain the frequency of the unified landmass against the chaotic frequency of the deep ocean. The Old Perth Jail and the James Street intersection. The Old Perth Jail, now part of the WA Museum, stands as a textbook example of the reset architecture. Its location is at James Street intersection. No coincidence, this was a primary crossroads, a node of high energetic convergence where the grid's geometric lines intersected. The physical state of the jail reveals a desperate attempt to adapt the post-mudflood environment. The silt evidence. Recent renovations uncovered windows that were completely submerged beneath the current ground floor. These were not basement windows by design. They were street level, infilled by the silt event. The basement. Historical records of the basement being lowered, then raised, indicate a struggle to recalibrate the building's grounding after the ground level was artificially elevated by the flood deposits. The energetic link. The grid was unified through a specific material conductor, the Fremantle limestone. By using the same stone for the city's central anchor as we used for the coastal gateway at Arthur Head, the architects created a direct resonating link, ensuring the city centre remained synchronised with the coastal and island sentinels. If these subterranean networks were truly constructed as simple colonial storage or defence, why do they align with such mathematical precision to the geological high points and the geometric crossroads required for frequency resonance? Does the 1837 construction timeline of the Whalers Tunnel represent a triumph of hand tools, or is it a rediscovery of pre-existing? This is just a little bit of a backstory to Fremantle and my family and where I was brought up. So it's O'Hara side, my mum's side. I've got the Italian side as well, but I'll tell that for another day because this is a long story and there's a lot going on in the Italian side as well. But the O'Hara side, on my mum's side, they owned most of White Gum Valley, which is just behind Fremantle. And it's really high ground as well. And that's sitting on a massive limestone ridge. But James Joseph O'Hara, he was my great-great-grandfather. And he was like high up in the Beaconsfield and Fremantle racing. And his son was named Cyril O'Hara. He was a trainer, and his brother, which was my great-great-uncle, was a merchant. So in the 1919 Australian Cup, they won the Australian Cup in 1919, and at the same year, they won the Peace Cup after World War One. And in that era, horse racing wasn't just a sport, it was a primary social and pulse of the colony. If they owned land as well and champion horses, and they were keepers of the field, they were called. And the merchant uncle, he was a great-great-uncle. He was a tea importer. So he was in the old world as well, perfectly wealthy from teas and spices and exotic goods that they ran through the Fremantle port. But my great-great-grandmother, poor old Mary O'Hara, they put her in the asylum. And the story was because in those days, the Fremantle Lunatic Asylum, which is now the Fremantle Arts Centre. Now, from doing all the research, I know that was not a lunatic asylum. It was something much greater, and I would like to look into the Fremantle Arts. It's the most beautiful limestone building, and she was put in there, and the charge was because she was reading the Bible and prophesying. So to the authorities, to the Catholics in those days, a woman claiming direct divine revelation or biblical foresight was a threat to the narrative. So they put her into the asylum, and she died there. Firstly, her husband died, which she loved, and they had 12 children as well. So some of the children were also put into the homes that were run by the Catholics at that time. And two of my great aunties, or just great aunties, were nuns, and then later they got married. But something went wrong with them too. Like they weren't quite, I don't know, I think it probably affected them being in the nunnery. And they said the nuns weren't very nice. I'm not saying all nuns are like that. I met some really nice nuns when I was young. I was in a like a daycare sort of thing when I was young, and they were all nuns, so they were nice. So it just depends. Yep. So Mary, she had been tapping into this holy frequency. The creators was talking to her, and she would prophesize, and they didn't like that. The geometry of the high ground of the asylum, it doesn't sit at sea level like the Leighton Battery does, but it's perched on a limestone ridge. And the capacitor, the entire building, is constructed from a massive blocks of the local calcinite limestone, and the stone is porous and mineral rich, acting as a natural capacitor that stores and conducts energetic charges from the earth. The colonial Gothic style, with its sharp arches and soaring vertical mirrors, the design of the old world cathedrals. So it probably was a cathedral before. But in the stability grid, these points function as atmospheric antennas, drawing frequency down to its foundations. During restorations, workers had uncovered windows and doors that led directly into solid earth, the classic marker of the reset architecture, and the tunnel link. There are long-standing accounts of tunnels connecting the asylum to the Fremantle prison, and even down towards the port in the stability grid. These are longitudinal waveguide conduits, allowing energy to flow between the primary containment site, the prison, and the processing site, the asylum. The asylum's thick limestone walls and subterranean cells were designed to create a Faraday cage effect for the spirit by placing prophets and sensitives inside the specific geometry. The colonial architects would effectively ground their signal, preventing the little season revelation from spreading. After doing this research, I've realised that there is a dual amplifier, output input. So the Fremantle Asylum was designed to do both, but the output depended entirely on where you stood in the hierarchy. For those running the grid, the building was the amplifier. The limestone walls and the Gothic spires work like massive satellite dish, gathering or atmospheric energy and focusing into central courtyard. But the intent, they were amplifying the control frequency by concentrating the energy of the prophets and sensitives inside. They weren't just silencing them, they were harvesting their spiritual output to stabilize the local stability grid. Sounds woo-woo, doesn't it? But this is how it works. And so there is a dielectric blocking. Limestone is a dielectric material. It's an insulator that can support an electrostatic field. So if you're locked inside a small, thick limestone box, a cell, the walls act as an insulator that prevents your internal frequency from connecting with the outside firmament. So when my great-great-grandmother Mary was prophesying, she was essentially a high-voltage spiritual transmitter. So placing her in a cell deep within the limestone ridge, they short-circuited her connection. Her frequency hit the walls and was immediately driven into the subterranean grid, the ground, rather than being broadcast into the hearts of people. I know it sounds strange, doesn't it? But it makes sense to me. In a way. It does. It really does. So Mary was a broadcast tower and the asylum was a jamming station. This is how they used it, so you can use it two ways. And the family history, because they had horses, supposedly horses are biological antennas. Horses are incredibly sensitive to electromagnetic fields and earth resonance. So if my great-great-grandfather had horses and they were winning championships, it suggests they were grazing on the high-frequency land. Whitegum Valley wasn't just dirt. It was a charging station as well. A tea merchant, tea and spices are dried organic matter that holds specific geographic frequencies. So my great uncle was moving products. He was moving energy as well through the ports. While his sister-in-law Mary was being grounded just a few blocks away. If the building was an amplifier, then the ghosts people see there today aren't just spirits. They are the residual loops of energy. The building is still holding because the old world tech hasn't been turned off. It's still trying to process the witness of people like Mary. I do think my studies, my life, and everything I've been through, and everyone else has been through as well, of course, but not trying to be a drama queen victim here, but my interest in the ancient Paleo-Hebrew, the true timeline, and everything I have seen, I reckon is the unfinished business of Mary O'Hara. I'm picking up the frequency that asylum tried to ground her over 100 years ago. The living God, the Creator, whom she prophesies about, is the very source of this energy they tried to harvest.
Of the Shannon still burning inside on Taylor Street Ridge, where the limestone is white. He held the high ground through the heat of the night. But Mary, oh Mary, she saw through the veil. In a land full of silence, she told the whole tale. She read from the book till her spirit took flame. So they locked her in stone to extinguish the knowing. In the south wing of infinity, top and so cold, they tried to ground out the truth that she told. Oh, the church and the crown, they were afraid